as promised, I said that I was going to make a video. Since I announced my pregnancy, I get like a lot of questions, a lot of inboxes from moms, and not even just like from Milwaukee. You know, I get people outside of Wisconsin. I've come into contact with moms in Minnesota and Texas and Virginia. I don't even know anybody that lives in Virginia, so that was like a new one for me. But anyway, needless to say, it's moms from all over where, you know, pretty much like I have bump partners. Tennessee too. I have a bump partner in Tennessee. We're doing the same day. So anyway, last week I posted on Instagram basically that if you had any questions pertaining to my pregnancy, my current pregnancy, or even if you have questions about previous ones that I've had, that I was willing to answer those questions. So, with that being said, I said I was going to answer these on video because some of them were like, some of the questions, it wouldn't been me trying to type it, it just was not going to do what it need to do. Basically, it just was not going to give what it need to give. So, I have my phone and I am going to answer these questions. So first off, I know I didn't introduce myself. I guess I just automatically assumed everybody watching it would know me, but okay. So if you see this video and you don't know me, then my name is, well, I go by Lala. Instagram, Lala Shantae. Many of you know me by Lavinia, of course, and then the rest is Lala. So first and foremost, the reason why I decided to do these videos, like I said, I get a lot of inbox, a lot of questions, and then I know that I get a lot of people just kind of sending that they're thinking of me or that they're praying for me, and they don't necessarily know, you know, the problem or what's happening, what's going on. And typically, honestly, I'm an open book. No matter, you know, what people might think, I'm really open and honest. Like, if you ask me questions, I'm going to answer it. I'm not one of those people that just be like, oh, they nosy, they in my business. It's just kind of like, whatever. I feel like a lot of times, whatever I'm going through, it can always help or benefit somebody else. So with this, at first, I was like a little distant. And I started reflecting on it and thinking like, you know, if I truly believe that my purpose is something with women, why would I shut down from this moment? Why should I not share this moment out of everything else in my life that I've shared, especially if my purpose is with women? If I'm supposed to help them, if this is supposed to be my testimony, who knows? I don't know. But the point is that we need this as women, because there's a lot of things that women don't talk about. Especially when it comes to this whole fertility situation, having a baby, sometimes even just our depression, our mental state, what we're going through on a daily basis. We always have this tendency of, I'm okay, everything's okay, and it's not. And you know, it's okay to not be okay. So before I start answering the questions, I just wanted to say that. And I also want to just address, like, you know, overall, so many people don't know this. So this is actually my 5th pregnancy. I have no kids. And I know that there were rumors before that I just never cared to address. And some of it never came from like the people that were actually sharing it. It came from outside people too. That I've had like several abortions and blah blah blah. That's not the case either. So a couple of them, you know, I was young. So I guess this will lead to my first question. Someone actually asked, first and foremost, they told me sorry for the previous loss. They said that they didn't know. And how did I get through the traumatic experience? So I want to touch on a few things. I'm going to answer the question, but the fact that they said they didn't know. Like I said, there are a lot of things that women don't share. And loss, honestly, for pregnancy loss, That's one of them. Women don't talk about it. Like, you'll be surprised that miscarriage is actually very common. And I'm pretty sure that if you know 10 people, probably 5 of them at least went through a miscarriage. That's how common it is. But women don't talk about it. They only talk about it, you know, once someone else is going through it, pretty much. And you know, and I get it. It's hard. It is very hard. Considering, like I said, you know, I'm about to tell you about how I've been through it. It is very hard, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, you know, sometimes you wish you would have known things in advance. Or because the reason why is because when other women don't talk about it and it actually happens to you, you just constantly put the blame on yourself. You feel like there's something truly wrong with you. When you see all these women with kids and you don't know that, you know, this person, yeah, she has 3 kids, but she probably had 4 or 5 miscarriages. Since they don't talk about that, we just feel like that something's wrong with me. I'm missing that aspect. I'm missing the ability to do something that women are supposed to be able to do. So fertility is like it's a tough conversation sometimes to have, but I feel like it's something that women, we need to find a way to be more open about the conversation. I had an ectopic pregnancy when I was 18, in 2011. And for you that don't know what that is, it basically just means that the baby is growing inside of your tubes. And when that happens, there's times where you might even lose your fallopian tubes. In my case, they were actually able to save them. So at this time, when that situation happened, there was I didn't feel anything at that time because I was 3 months pregnant when I found out. Because the baby was in my tubes, I was having normal menstrual cycles. So the month that I found out, I remember it was in March, and I thought it was just a menstrual cycle. Like I was cramping really bad, and normally I didn't cramp, so it was new. I was like, "Why am I cramping this bad?" And I remember the guy that I was dealing with at the time. You know, he actually was the one who convinced me to go to the hospital because he's just like, your periods are, you know, never this bad. And I'm like, okay, you're right. Went to go get seen, and immediately they thought that I was just having a miscarriage. So I remember they had sent me home, just told me, you know, let it pass at home, blah, blah, blah. A couple days later, they wanted me to come back in so they can check my hormone levels, because if I was miscarrying, then my levels should have been going down. When I went in, they were actually rising. So that told them, like, she's not having a miscarriage, she's clearly still pregnant. So they rushed me to the hospital, and I remember this moment of, like, I get to the hospital and they do an ultrasound, and I remember hearing the phone ring, and they're like, Miss Chappelle, you know, your doctor's on the phone for you. I knew then, I'm like, something is clearly not right for my doctor to be calling the hospital. So I get on the phone and she tells me, you know, you're still pregnant, the baby's inside of your tubes. They are going to do, and she just started running down the process of the procedure that they were going to do to me. They did it microscopic, so I didn't have to get like a huge cut or anything. They just cut me here and here, basically the same place on both sides, and went in that way. Now, I explain all this because I was still in labor delivery at the hospital. I was still in that area, that floor, labor and delivery. So, like I said, it didn't affect me at the time. What did affect me, or what I do remember the most, is that what bothered me the most is that when I was leaving the hospital, when I was discharged the next day, as I'm getting wheelchaired out of the hospital, people are telling me, congratulations. And my mom is rolling me in the back, and she's just kind of shaking her head at everybody, so, you know, other people won't keep saying it. But a few of them already had got it out where they were telling me congratulations. And I'm like, I don't have a baby. I don't know what you're congratulating me for. But once again, I was a teenager, so it didn't affect me. The biggest thing that probably affected me around that one was that the father of that child, he didn't know how to handle the situation. And granted, he was living in another state, whatever. I'm not gonna get into that, but he would check on me through his mom. It was really weird. It was, yeah, an extremely weird time. So I think that made it difficult, that I just feel like I was alone. But that one I just completely moved on with. That experience did not affect me until last March. So March of 2020, this is so weird because they both happened in March. So last year, my current boyfriend of almost 4 years, we were trying to get pregnant. The year before, in 2019, yeah, we started trying to get pregnant in 2019, and then kind of lingered a little into 2020, but it was kind of like 2020 was kind of like a touch or go situation. I'll explain that. But anyways, it ended up happening, and we found out in February of last year, 2020, and we lost it on the day that I would have been 7 weeks. 7 weeks or 8 weeks. I took it extremely hard. Extremely hard. First and foremost, so every miscarriage is different. There's sometimes, you know, you just have miscarriage and it's kind of, that's it. You just continue to go on, like literally. You can still do normal activities. Nothing, it kind of is off with your body. Mine was nothing like that at all. So I remember waking up at 5 in the morning and I feel really moist. And granted, when you're pregnant, you're kind of more moist anyway. And I remember it was still dark outside, but I reached my hand down, and when I pulled out the cover, I could see the liquid on my hand. And I'm like, there's no way I should be able to see liquid on my hand. So I got up and I went to the bathroom, and I'm like, I just started, you know, screaming for him. I'm like, babe, I'm bleeding. None of our parents had knew at this time because we were waiting to tell them. I think we were going to wait till Mother's Day to announce it. I immediately called my mom and I'm like, Mom, I'm pregnant and I'm bleeding. So she's like, you know, calm down. You know, something similar happened to her when she was the same length of her pregnancy with my brother. But of course he's here now, he's 15. So anyway, she comes over and she drives us to the hospital. And mind you, this was March of 2020, so this is right when schools had just closed. COVID is high on the charts. You know, the hospitals are kind of starting to get really packed. The experience was the worst experience I could have imagined. Like, the level of care was just completely off because they were more so worried about, they feel like this is something common, she had a miscarriage, whatever, and we have people that's dying right now from COVID. And that's how it felt. Like, it just felt like they did not care. Like, it was like no sympathy, no talking me through it. It was just like, yeah, this is happening. You know, it looks like, then they were like, it was like it was really it was the most horrible experience ever, for real. Like, it was like probably the worst time to have a miscarriage. And it was weird though, because I didn't have any pain. I wasn't going through any pain or anything. Like, I wasn't cramping. There was a moment at the hospital where the blood slowed down. I didn't have any clots coming out yet, anything like that. But when they checked my hormone levels, she was like, oh, it looks like you're about 4 weeks. I said, absolutely not. Considering that at this time we were like in that mindset where we like wanted to conceive, but then we were like, I don't know. And I was battling with this whole, I was battling with my religion too, where I was like, we're trying to have a kid and we're not even married. I don't need to be having sex. So, it was like, I knew exactly when we conceived. So I was just like, no, we should be, I can't remember, it was 7 or 8 weeks, but I was like, no, we should be exactly this today. And she was like, you know, sometimes those pregnancy tests show early. I'm like, if I was 4 weeks, mine would not have showed at all because I took it a month ago. So it was just really crazy. And I remember getting sent home. They told me that I would have to return the following Sunday, for them to check, not to the hospital, but just go to one of the labs and get, my levels, my hormone levels checked, my blood drawn. So I remember that going home, then the pain came. I was trying my best to just prop my feet, prop my legs up, not do much. I was kind of like on restrictions. It was like the most terrible thing ever. Like, I mean, like when I say crucial pain, like I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even cook. Like my boyfriend had to take over for the cooking, and at this time, that was not ideal. He's better now, but that was not ideal last year. Like he sucked in the kitchen. Sorry, babe. But anyways, I say he's better now. So, anyways, during that process, I was trying my best not to cry a lot, especially around my boyfriend, because I just feel like at the end of the day, yeah, this is my body. I'm going through it physically, but at the same time, he's going through it mentally too with me. And I knew that he didn't like to see me cry. So I was trying my best to be strong, but it was hard. And the reason why it was hard was because that situation that I just told you about that happened when I was 18, that I had no feelings about, now the feelings are coming out. And like PTSD or something. And it was just like that moment where I just felt like, this moment is always being snatched away from me. What is wrong with me? And I hate to say this, but this is where my mind was at that moment. I'm like, God, there's so many women having children that either don't want them or, essentially they're just not good parents. And, I'm like, this is something we really want. Like, why? Why is this moment being snatched away from me constantly? And I regretted it. I was questioning God. And it wasn't like questioning like, why would you do this to me? Or why is this happening to me? Well, kind of why was it happening to me? I did. Because I was asking him, like, there's so many women out here that are having kids and don't even want them, or abandoning them. This is something that, I want. Why is this happening? And I did regret when I questioned him. And I did repent for that. I did ask for his forgiveness, because no matter what we go through, we should never question God. Everything that goes on in this world is his will. So I did regret that. But that was my initial. And I kind of, I don't know if it's because, I go to church already. Like I'm in church and I'm already, my pastor is great and he already provides us with great messages. And I'm real keen on comparing something, whatever's going on in my life, to something that's in scripture. My pastor always teaches that, like, always, you can always find what you're going through in scripture, related to scripture. So it wasn't long before I kind of like, God, you know what, I'm sorry that I questioned you, and went a different route with it. But that doesn't stop to say that it was very hard to get over. My situation was even harder because at this time I had 3 of my very close friends pregnant as well. They were further along than me, of course. But 4 of them, there were 4 of them actually, I'm sorry, that were pregnant at the same time. And one of the 4, she was like way ahead of everybody. But the other 3 were pregnant. And, we all had a group message and just kind of checking in with one another. And it was just kind of like, dang, so I'm the 4, or I'm the 1 out of the 5 that this had to happen to. And just still being able to celebrate with them and not show jealousy or any of that. It was rough. And one of my close friends ended up having her baby shower on my actual due date. So the day that I know it don't always happen on your due date, but the day that I should have been having my baby, I was at her baby shower celebrating her child. And by that day, which that was like March, April, May, June, July. So that was, a couple months. I had by then I was starting to heal a lot more, but that process was rough. I was in a dark place. Um, I'll be honest. I was in a very dark place. And there was a time where I didn't know how to pull myself out of it. And I remember I was struggling so much. Like I would want to cry in front of my boyfriend because I knew he didn't understand it completely. So it would be like in the shower. When I go take a shower every day, I was just crying. And there were days that I didn't want to pray because I feel like I prayed so much. And then that happened. It was a lot. And not only did I, after I stopped questioning God, I started questioning myself. I started thinking like, well, maybe I'm just not deserving to be a mother. Maybe I'm not meant to be a mother. Maybe I'm going to be a horrible mother and God is just stopping me right now. Or maybe it is just because I'm in sin. Like in reality, I'm in sin. So this is the reason. Like God did this because I shouldn't have been having sex anyway out of wedlock. So it was like I was basically trying to come up with all of these reasons and, saying that maybe this is my punishment. And I remember talking to my pastor wife and she's like, telling me about her. And she's like, I wasn't doing anything. And, it was just kind of like, okay, you're right. I had to stop trying to find reason. I feel like every time something happens, we always want to find reason. Why did this happen? And it just wasn't, I guess, the right time. Like it just wasn't my time. But I went through months of just struggling with the whole thing. And I remember what helped the most is that October, first and foremost. So my due date should have been November 7th. October is infant or pregnancy loss awareness month. So I basically started, just kind of paying attention, being more involved in the community where a lot of women have went through this. I was talking with people that have had their rainbow babies, that went through loss, and just kind of, communicating with them, trying to see, if what I'm going through, am I nuts? Am I really losing my mind? Because like I said, I was in a dark place. I feel like it was my fault. I feel like it was slightly my boyfriend's fault. We were kind of going downhill, because it was just kind of like, well, maybe I even thought like, well, maybe we have this because our communication still kind of sucks and we need to get better at this. So we were like also during this time seeking therapy too, because it was just like, clearly there's still a lot going on in our relationship that we weren't ready to bring a baby into anyway. And I remember I actually hurt his feelings because I told him, I said, a kid can make or break a relationship and we would have been broken. I can laugh about that now, but I was so serious. Like I was so serious. Like I'm coming up with all these assumptions, all these reasons, and I'm just like angry. But anyway, I started communicating with many different women, and participating in things. On October 15th, they always say that you're supposed to light a candle for your child that you lost. And this is the thing, sometimes I think women don't also talk about it because they feel like, well, I wasn't even that far gone yet. I wasn't far along yet. It doesn't matter. A loss is a lost. Sorry, I hate when people pronounce that wrong. A loss is a loss. And it doesn't matter if you were 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 7 weeks. You still have something growing inside of you. You still have something a part of you. And no matter what, you still lost it. Like it still left your body. And I want people to not just feel like, well, it was just. We always have this way of saying just. No, it was a baby. May not have been a big baby, but it was a baby. And, I feel like I also couldn't communicate with anybody because of that. I didn't want people judging me and be like, well, you were just 7 weeks. Well, I was 7 weeks and I was excited about that child. And it was just the moment overall of getting a positive test after taking so many. Because like I told you, we were actually trying prior. And I remember that whole year of 2019, I probably took a million pregnancy tests and always negative, 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 negative. So I already was going through this whole thing of like, clearly I can't have a kid. You know, after that ectopic pregnancy, and before that I didn't mention, but before the ectopic pregnancy, I actually had an abortion. I did have one. And I was like, you know, I just can't have a kid, I guess. And so it was a lot. But when I started communicating with other women, when I started being a little more open about it, it made the situation better. I started praying over it. I started speaking life back into myself, basically. Where, you know, there was a time where when I was like, well, it's not meant for me to have a kid, I started trying to convince myself that I didn't want children when I knew that wasn't true. I started speaking life into myself where I'm like, you're gonna have a child. You're gonna be a great mother. You're gonna have a beautiful baby boy or baby girl. It didn't matter the sex. It didn't matter the gender for me. But I was like, you know, you are going to have your child. You're gonna have that moment. And I start speaking out to God as to why do I want to be a mom? And everybody's reason is different, but I remember sitting in the car and I'm crying out to God and I'm telling him my desires and I'm telling him my reasons why. This is why I want to be a mom. And so I started speaking these positive things over me, and that started making me feel better. But then also, I know I got a little off track. In October, on October 15th, I lit that candle for the children, the child that I lost. For me, children, because it was 2. And that kind of lifted a weight off of me. Knowing that I'm celebrating their life even though they're not here. I'm acknowledging them, because there was a time where I wouldn't even acknowledge them, especially the one that I had the ectopic pregnancy with. That was 3 months, and I never acknowledged it. Some people probably didn't even know that story. And aside from that, on the day of my due date, which should have been November 7th of 2020, I remember I had got a custom candle made, a tall one. So it's gonna get burned this year too. But I put a little message on there to the baby, and I burnt that candle for most of that day. And I remember before it happened, my boyfriend and his mom was like a little concerned. They were like, is she gonna set up like a real memorial? Because I told them, I was like, oh, I'm gonna just, you know, put some stuff on the nightstand for the baby, light a candle. And so they were thinking like a memorial type of thing. And it wasn't that. It ended up being small, of course. It was just a candle. Like, and my cousin sent me flowers, so I had the flowers next to the candle, and I just burned that candle. But I want to say that was the moment that I was able to just let go and be at peace. And know that, like, you know, although I didn't carry you long, or you didn't make it to the world, you were still a part of me at some point. I acknowledge you. I love you no matter what. And, you know, now I'm at peace, basically. And I always tell people now when women reach out to me, and I tell them that, and I'll be honest, the lighting a candle, I actually got that from Grey's Anatomy. Anybody that knows me know that's my favorite show. I actually got that from Grey's Anatomy, but it worked. I seen it on there and I was like, I am going to do that. So when, you know, even right now, November 7th comes up next month, I'm going to light that candle all over again, because I'm acknowledging the child that I would have had. So I know that was like a long answer. But it was just kind of like time, prayer, talking it through. A lot of times you're not going to get through something just by being silent. You know, when they say time heals all wounds, it don't. No, not unless you're doing something, actively doing something with that time. Like, who are you talking with? You can't just, you know, hold it in. You need somebody. We all need somebody to talk with. And granted, yeah, you can talk to God all day. I talk to God all day, every day. Like, he's the first person I tell my problems to. But sometimes it helps to also have somebody physically here with you as well. And it doesn't always have to be a spouse, because I just share with you, like, my spouse, he couldn't figure out for the life of him, why was I taking this so hard? Why was I lingering? Like, why was it lingering on me so hard? Why was I holding on to it so long? He didn't know. And it bothered him because he's like, more than anything, he's like, I don't like to see you cry. I don't like to see you hurt. He knew that was in a dark place and he didn't know how to pull me out of it. And he didn't know why. Why are you still here? Like, you know, it happened. But he didn't know. I had to break it down to him that it was PTSD. You know, I went through this, you know, I went through something already and I didn't acknowledge it the way that it should have been acknowledged then. So now I just feel like that life just keeps getting snatched from me. And like I'm incapable of doing something that a woman should be able to do. And that I'm just to blame. Like I had to explain all that to him, but I had to talk it through. I had to really talk it through out loud with God in my mind. I had to do affirmations all the time, but the biggest thing was that helped me get through it was the light in the candle, but then also filling myself with life, filling myself with those positive affirmations every day that you're going to be a mom, that you're going to be a great mom, that you're going to have a healthy baby, that you're going to make it full term in a pregnancy. You know, those are the things. When I first found out I was pregnant with this baby, being you know, a year later, I was terrified. I was terrified. I felt like I couldn't enjoy this pregnancy. And I didn't want to tell people. Yeah, I just didn't want to get excited about it. Like I was like, you know, I just felt like I got excited last time and look what happened. So I don't want to be excited. And I felt that like, you know, I did feel that this one was like, okay, I feel good about this one. Granted, it's still out of wedlock. Still out of wedlock. But this one, it was still conceived differently as well. I mentioned to you all that I was trying to be abstinent a little last year. This year, I was kind of full into it. I still am. And it was kind of like a slip, may I say. We went out of town and it was just, yeah. But hey, this is what resulted out of it. I'm still trying to practice it. It's very hard with the hormones and being pregnant and just, yeah, it's like the hormone monster. But anyway, so this one was hard because of what I went through last year. I was just kind of like, no, you know, I just feel like I couldn't get excited about it. You know, when we found out we were at home, I just, you know, he went to the store and he got the test and he brought it home to me, came right up positive. Showed him, and I think like it was like a moment where we both were like, should we be excited or what? So it was rough, and it's like you tell yourself, okay, well, if I just make it past 7 weeks, because that's where I lost the last one, I'll feel a little better. I made it past 7 weeks, I felt no better. Then it's like, okay, well, you know, they say that your chances are lower once you hit 9 weeks. I'll feel better. I didn't feel better. And that was the time when I actually had my first ultrasound. And I still didn't feel better. And then I was like, okay, well, you know, 12 weeks for sure. It's like 1% chance normally to have one after 12 weeks. I didn't feel better. It was like every time I went to the bathroom, I just feel like that I was going to be bleeding. Or anytime I feel moisture, I thought it was blood or just anything. And it's like, you know, and people are like, what, you're not pain. I was like, I wasn't in pain the first time. So mentally it was just like hard for me. Like it was hard to get excited about this pregnancy. This brings me to another question that someone asked, which was, what are the doctors saying is wrong? So if you follow me on social media, you'll know that like this pregnancy has been a overall journey. It's been an experience for sure.
And um, right when I felt comfortable and I was starting to be really excited about the pregnancy, I announced it on social media, and I was like, this is it. This is my time. You know, I was really truly happy about it because at this point in time, only like close family and friends knew. And now I'm like ready to share with the world. My pregnancy announcement had like went viral. That's weird to say, but it was like over 150K views, over 300 shares, like 400 saves. I don't. What do people do with that when they save things? But anyway, so I was really excited now. But I had not allowed myself to buy things yet. I was like, I'm excited, I'm announcing it, but I'm not going to buy anything. And we made it to 20 weeks, and by now I am getting a little more excited because I'm like, okay, well, I'm about to have a gender reveal. And you know, we go to our 20-week ultrasound appointment. This is where they tell you, you know, do the gender, all of that. But it's called your anatomy scan, so they pretty much check for everything. They check to see, like, you know, if the baby has 2 hands, 5 fingers on each one, two feet, 5 toes on each one. How's the belly? How's the brain? How's the head size? Measuring the baby's whole body. Just everything. They're literally checking every single thing, right? Anatomy scan is going amazing. And his heart is doing good. Just everything is really, 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 really on point. Until they got to his brain. They get to his brain basically, and they tell me that there's fluid in the ventricles, in both, in left and right, and that they did not see a cerebellum. So our cerebellum is basically, it does everything pretty much. It's how we move our arms, how we walk. It interferes with how we speak, how we eat. It's controlling our arms. Just all like voluntary movements that we do. Your cerebellum is the reason for that. So she's like, I'm not seeing it. I'm gonna have the doctor look at, the ultrasound pictures, and then she'll kind of come in. She'll kind of go from there. So the doctor comes in, and she tells us like, yeah, no, we don't see a cerebellum at all. And she's like, so, we're going to have to send you for an MRI. And she was like, but I'm going to tell you first, like, what this might mean. She said that it can be that there's not one there at all, or she's like, which I think that's the case. She made it clear that she felt like that was the case. There was no cerebellum at all. Or she said that it might just be measuring small. She said, if it's measuring small, then you're looking at still having a baby with some deficits. That might be, moderate to severe. If it's not there at all, which once again, that's what I think. So she reiterated it. That's what she thinks. We're looking at a child that will never walk, might not speak, for a very long time or at all. Will not be able to eat on its own, might have to be on a feeding tube. And breathing. She said also might not breathe on its own. So you got to think that this appointment was 2 days before our gender reveal. And when I say that, we literally broke down. And the crazy part about it is that my boyfriend almost did not make it to this appointment. So it was just by luck that he left work and made it to this appointment. So I wasn't there alone to hear this or have to go through this alone. We broke down. Where they had to like leave the room, like, we're gonna give you some time. So we scheduled the next appointment, which was our MRI. That was 2 weeks. It was supposed to be 2 weeks after the ultrasound. So the MRI, I remember that one, my doula just went with me because we weren't going to get any results, at that moment. They were just going to do the MRI. We'll find out results later. So they did the MRI, most uncomfortable thing ever, and it took so long, and that machine is so loud. But they did it. After that, we had a week after that, we had a repeat ultrasound, but then we also had like so many other appointments. Like that day, our appointment started at 9 in the morning, and we didn't leave there until 5 p.m. So we literally were at the hospital all day, like a whole work shift. And so this time, by then, we're like, we just stayed in prayer as much as we could. And anybody that knows my boyfriend, like my boyfriend is not really like the praying type. He will go to church with me sometimes. But it's like I have to ask, and it's almost like it used to be like pulling teeth or something. My boyfriend was even in prayer. That's how deep it was. And anybody that do go to church and stuff, they know about like prophecies and all that. I remember that at the beginning of my pregnancy, I had went to the altar for prayer, and I remember one of the young ladies that was praying for me had prophesied to me and said that my baby was going to bring my boyfriend to Christ. And I was like, at first I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, how? Like, that is amazing. But I remember getting in my car leaving church, and I'm just sitting there thinking, I'm like, how? And I'm like, oh, please, don't let it be traumatic. Don't let it be a traumatic reason or, way or something that makes him, believe in Christ. And I was like, if it was up to me, it'd just be like the baby get here and the baby just be holier than thou. Like, Dad, let's go to church. But this is the year of expedite. So he, that prophecy wasn't about when the baby is here already and able to walk and talk and say he wants to go to church and you're coming too. It's the year of expedite, as my pastor says. So he meant now. And I remember saying, like, when I said I didn't want it in a traumatic way, my pastor wife said, she told me that it's always going to be in a traumatic way. So anyway, when we get all of these results at this time, and I'm being in prayer, my boyfriend was too. Like, I remember, walking in the house, hearing him listen to certain stuff, and I'm like, is he listening to like a Bible app? Okay. And then he's saying, like, how he prayed. I asked him, at first I was being funny, like, did you pray? And he was like, yeah. And he was like praying every day. And I remember one day I actually walked past and seen him praying. That's what made me ask. I seen him on his knees in his he has a man cave. I seen him on his knees, and I was like, is he picking up something or is he praying? And so that's why I ended up asking him, like, have you prayed? And he like, yeah. And his mom pretty much just told him, like, it's not just to pray one time, but to keep praying. So we were just like really, 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 really staying in prayer more than anything. I remember when they gave us the first results, I didn't even I broke down and I was crying, but I didn't do what I previously did with the loss. I said, I didn't blame God or anything. I didn't question him. Immediately, I just thanked him. I thanked God for the journey, making it, this far. This is, like I said, this is my 5th pregnancy. And it's the first time that I made it to my 2nd trimester. So I thanked him for that. Sorry. So I thanked God for that, for everything. I just thanked him, like, thank you for allowing me to make it this far. Thank you for allowing me to even conceive, because I was in that mindset where I felt like I couldn't even conceive or I couldn't carry a child or self-worth. So I did thank him for all of that immediately. And then I just, not only did I thank him, I immediately also asked him for forgiveness for all of my sins. And then from there, I just went into strong prayer where I was praying every single day, like all day. Like, God probably got tired of me. That little post they say that, what if when we die, we think we're going to get to heaven and chill, but it's a call center for prayers? If that's true, then I know that they were sick of me, because I was on the line all day, every day. Every chance, any free time I had, I was praying, and even in my head, sometimes I was praying. But when we went to that long appointment, that we were there all day, like a work shift, basically they told us that the when they did the MRI, they said they did find a cerebellum. But mind you, before they even did the results, they actually did another ultrasound. They did a repeat ultrasound before they came in and told us the results of the MRI. And I remember while she's doing the ultrasound, she's like checking off things, and she said cerebellum. And when she got up and walked out, I was like, babe, did you hear her? I was like, she said cerebellum when she was marking items on the brain. I was like, so that means she's seen it this time. And so we like, okay. So when they did when they came in, we went to another room, and they start telling us about how the MRI went, what they seen, and far as also how did the this new ultrasound go. So they're like, we did see cerebellum during the MRI. It was measuring small, and today during the ultrasound, same thing. But they said today on the ultrasound was actually measuring. Not only was it measuring small, but it was oddly shaped. They said that it looked like a molar, like your tooth. Typically, when that happens, they feel like it is a syndrome called Joubert syndrome. Joubert. That is Joubert. Joubert syndrome. I've never heard of this until this day. It is very rare. Only about 1,000 people in the entire world has it. And basically, that's what they were saying, that he was like very confident, like your child has this. We're almost certain that your child has this. They were like, we have to do more tests, but we're almost sure. And they were like, basically that this is now where he confirmed, like, that conversation that you had with the previous author, and she told you what could happen. You're here. He was like, this baby is never going to walk. He said, you don't have, how there's mild, moderate, severe. He said mild, we ruled out. He was like, your baby is not ever going to walk. He said that, breathing even might be difficult, where your child might need to be on a breathing machine all the time. Speaking might happen really late if it ever does. And he's told me that basically our baby might not even be able to consume normal food, but may need a feeding tube. And he's just like, that from what we see now, this is what it's going to be like. So with all that being said, that is not, that's not a good quality of life. So they were right away just like, you're already 21 weeks. The limit for Wisconsin is that they can terminate a child up to 22 weeks. They were like, all of the results that we are going to do are going to take more than a week to come back. So they were like, we can run all of the tests. You can still, terminate your pregnancy, and we'll know for future pregnancies. That didn't sit well with me. Terminating was not an option. I already shared with you guys that before I had that ectopic pregnancy when I was 18, I did have an abortion, and it wasn't an option for me. And I'm happy that my boyfriend was on that same path with me, that it was not an option for him. So we're listening to them, but we're like, we're not terminating our pregnancy. This is God's will at the end of the day. I'm not going to do my hand in it. And even when I talked to my pastor, he said what he felt, and I said, well, I'm happy you said that, Pastor, but that was never an option for me. We were not going to do that. Terminating was not one of them. But I remember that the hospital was so strong with it. They were so strong on it, where they just kind of kept talking about terminating my pregnancy. And one man even came in and said, this bothered me a little too. He came in and said, well, if you don't want to terminate your pregnancy, if it's like religious. So he automatically assumed it was religious, which it partially was, but also because of experiences that I've been through. But he's like, if you don't want to do it that way, he said, well, let's say the baby's born and you see the quality of life, like you see that it needs to be on a breathing machine or something, and that's just not what you want to do. If it's on a ventilator, he's like, then you can terminate care that way. He's like, or he's like, let's say if it is able to breathe on its own, but it needs to be on a feeding tube, you can terminate care that way. He's like, now that one is a little harder. Yeah, because essentially you're saying that I'm going to be starving my baby to death. And that just didn't sit well with me either. We are, we're in this mindset where we're like, we're not going to terminate our pregnancy, but if, or like how, the way that we plan on going through with it, we're also looking at the fact that we are going to do everything we can to make this child survive. We don't necessarily want it to live, suffering, but I'm not going to terminate care for like starving my child. That's not what I'm going to do. It's like, if I have this child, then we're going to do everything we can to keep it alive, but still in a sense that my baby's not suffering. So we received everything, We still broke down that day because that was a lot of information. Because that appointment, like I said, we were there till 5 p.m. and it was so much information coming at us. And we had to do amniocentesis, where basically, if you don't know what that is, but it's like basically where they stick a needle in your stomach and they pull fluid from your sac. And this was to test, like, to see if he really had Joubert syndrome. It was to check his chromosomes, like any genetic type of disorders, just literally everything. Like, they took about six tubes of my fluid. It hurts. I'm gonna just put it out there. It hurts. When I did my first trimester screening, I did not do that because I knew that it posed a risk, especially in your first trimester, that some women that had that done had miscarriages afterwards. Now, although I was in my second trimester when I had it done, I was still put on bed rest because of the risk, and I'm already considered high risk. So I was put on bed rest for 48 hours because it's typically like you're within the first 48 hours it's a high chance for you to miscarry after having that done. So I was pretty much at home doing nothing. Showering though was HELL. Whenever I would get in the shower, it would feel like that cramping sensation that I felt when they were pulling the fluid out. I just hated to get in the shower for those first 2 days. So anyway, during this time, once again, staying in prayer. Every test that they did, all the test results came back normal. All of them. Which now bothered me even more because I'm like, y'all were so strong on me terminating my pregnancy. What if I would have did that and you can't even find anything wrong right now? Like, other than the fact that the images that you've seen, you can't find anything wrong. You can't find any reason. Even the test for the Joubert syndrome came back normal, or negative. We did not. Our baby does not have that. Right now, we're at the stage where we have to have ultrasounds every 4 weeks. And currently, the status of LJ, yes, if I did not mention, he's a junior, LaRon Jr., so we'll call him LJ. At the stage that he's at right now, we have to have ultrasounds every 4 weeks. Our last one was just a week or 2 ago. And he, first and foremost, is growing perfectly fine. Look, every time I say his name or something, he gets like moving around. But this is actually, I have it next to me. Actually, I bought this for a reason. So this was our last scan. If you guys can see, he is big. That's his feet. That's him. Look at the 3D one though. I don't know. Can you really see it? So he is growing really great. On that one, he was already, I think it was 2 weeks ago, he was already 1 pound and 11 ounces. So basically 2 pounds. And yeah, I just turned 26 weeks today. So why are you that big already? But he's growing really well. The lady, when she was doing his ultrasound, especially that 3D part, She was like, oh my God, he's so cute. So that made us feel good. And that appointment was like the best appointment that we've had because we've been having some terrible appointments. But that one was finally a good appointment. So, anyways, so that appointment went really well. Image wise, the brain looks the same. Like there's still fluid in his ventricles and the cerebellum is still pretty much looking the same. But everything else about him, he's doing extremely well. So, and like they're not, they were just kind of like, at this point, everything has come back normal, which I told them. I said the last test that they did, because they called me and they were like, we still have some of your DNA. Can we test one more other thing? And I was like, because you already have it, go for it. I said, but if this comes back normal, I said, we're done. I said, any other testing that you want to do, you will have to wait till LJ is here. And I stood on that. I'm like, there's nothing more that you're doing to me to test him. I'm not going to continue to put myself under this stress because when I'm stressing, I'm stressing him out too. And I feel like LJ does. Like, I feel like he's stressed. Like, every time we go to the doctor, I feel like when we go to, like, ultrasounds and everything, I feel like he's just kind of annoyed. Like, on the 3D one that I showed you, he actually had his hand on his head like this. Like, he was just so over it. To the point where he just kept doing this, putting his hand on his forehead, like, leave me alone. And then he even, like, turned his back on them at one point where he's just like, I'm over this. Or when they're trying to, like, always get his heartbeat, he'll constantly move. He'll, like, let's say they, like, put on the, like, heart monitor on my stomach and put, like, attach it on me. He'll, like, move from where they are. So I'll never forget one visit. It just got to the point where I just stood up. Like, I just got out the bed, I stood up, and every time he moved, I just moved it over. So by the time the lady came back at him, she was like, oh, we got some good reading. And she was like, why are you standing? I said, because he kept moving. So I had to keep moving it where he was going. But he's, like, extremely active. I'm still, like, constantly in prayer every day. The biggest thing for me is that I said that I want a miracle, but I also said that I wanted to confuse the doctors. At the end of the day, doctors are not experts. And it's funny to me, I didn't mention that when she called and told me that all my results were normal, she was like, we're not experts. And, it was, me and my boyfriend, we were like, but you seemed really confident when you were telling us to terminate our pregnancy. Your whole title is genetic specialist. So you were extremely confident, but now because you're not finding anything, now you're telling me you're not an expert. At the end of the day, like I said, I heard what they were telling me. I received the information, but I did not accept it because I know I believe in a higher purpose. I believe in a higher being. I believe in God, and I know that He work miracles. I know that God is a healer, a protector, a provider. And, like I said, I received it. I just I didn't accept it. And I was happy that my boyfriend was in prayer as well, because they say that when two or more come together in His name, He hears us and He makes things happen on earth. So I'm still in prayer. I'm still going. And the biggest thing for me, and I didn't say this before, when the doctor asked or said something about, it being a religious reason why I didn't want to terminate my pregnancy, although it was slightly that and slightly what I've been through, but also because this entire pregnancy, at the beginning, I had 2 hospital visits where I thought that I was having a miscarriage, actually. 2 visits that I went to the hospital where I was bleeding, and I was thinking that it's happening again, and it actually wasn't. And I remember in that moment, that second visit, and I'm like, this is my fighter. This child is here to stay. This is my survivor. This is my miracle child. This is my rainbow baby. If you don't know what a rainbow baby is, it's the child that you have the child that comes after you've already had a loss, after you had a loss. So I was like, LJ, this is it. Like, this is my survivor. And I would talk to him every day, even before he could really hear me. I would be like, keep fighting. Mama is fighting with you. So how could I tell my child to keep fighting and not to give up. But yeah, I give up on him by terminating him. I couldn't do it. I say every day. I literally tell around, I say every day, I tell this child that he's my miracle and my fighter. I said, how can I go from that to terminating him and giving up on him after I told him not to give up on me? So that was the biggest thing. Where I was like, we're keeping this baby. It's God's will. I do have a daily prayer that I would say. And now, like, you know, it's changed a bit, but I definitely still say bits and pieces of it. So this was like from day one. This was my prayer. Father, I thank you for filling my womb with life. I know this precious little baby comes from you and has been destined by you from the beginning of the world. I thank you for this miracle growing inside of me in the secret place of my womb. I thank you that you are giving this little baby to us as a gift, but also as a gift for the world. We can't wait to see another image of yourself come forth into this world and the plans you have for this child. We ask you, Father, in Jesus' name, to hedge our little baby about in your mighty protection. Watch over this little one each day as you intricately create him in the hidden sanctuary of the womb. We ask for your divine health and that you will sustain me in good health and vitality throughout this whole pregnancy. I ask that you will fill me with your joy and that everyone will see the glory of God upon me as I nurture this precious life within me. Thank you again for this amazing miracle and for giving us an eternal soul that will live forever. It is awesome to think that I'm a part of something eternal. I pray that you will keep this baby growing in the womb until full term, and this baby will come forth in your perfect timing with no problems or complications. In Jesus' name, amen. So that was my daily prayer. It was actually a prayer that I found online, and I kind of added a few things too. But that was my daily prayer, you know, and still is. I just kind of mixed it up a little. He loves prayer. Whenever I'm praying, he actually starts moving. That's why I started smiling and rubbing my stomach, because anytime I'm in prayer, like in church and all that, he's always like up and moving around, like doing prayer. He can be asleep. As soon as he hear me start praying, I say something about God and Jesus, little self gets to moving. So yeah, that's what's going on with him. That's how I handled most of it. And I feel like this video is pretty long, so I'm gonna wrap up here and I'm gonna do a part 2.